How Caitlin Clark fever upended a WNBA doormat. Christy Sides has spent most of her life in basketball. She played on Louisiana Tech's 1999 Final Four team, was an assistant coach for Louisiana State's Final Four teams, and spent a decade as an assistant in the WNBA. But none of that prepared Sides for her second season as head coach of the Indiana Fever. That was when the team used the number 1 overall pick to draft a sharpshooter from the University of Iowa named Caitlin Clark, and their entire world was turned upside down. An early hint of how dramatically different this year would become when the team went on an early season road trip. Before this year, Sides says, she had never received a call on her hotel phone from a random member of the public. This season, she got a bunch of voicemails from people wanting to meet players, wanting tickets, wanting, an autograph. Like any good coach confronted with an unfamiliar situation, Sides said she made some adjustments. That included checking into hotels under aliases to avoid the sudden burst of outsized attention. Yeah, I think there's some of us that have some fake names out there, at hotels, Sides said. I mean, it's crazy when you just said that, just to think about that's what's happening. Entering the season, the Fever were a young, rebuilding team that Sides thought would take until 2025 or 2026 to reach the playoffs. Instead, with Clark averaging more than 19 points and 8.4 assists per game, and winning WNBA Rookie of the Year, they made it this season. Indiana is down 0-1 to the Connecticut Sun and faces a must-win road game in a best-of-3 first-round series on Wednesday. When the Fever started the season 1-8, a legion of mostly new fans had strong and sometimes ornery opinions about their play on the court. Sides would often trend on social media, mostly because people were calling for her to be fired. I've talked to some NFL coaches, I've talked to some NBA head coaches, and they've gone through this, Sides said. This has been their life for years, so they're used to it. We didn't have a scouting report on it, so we weren't prepared. When Fever forward Aaliyah Boston, the 2023 number 1 overall pick from South Carolina, struggled at the season's start, she was attacked on social media so relentlessly that she logged out of her accounts. Road games, Fever fans show up by the hundreds or even thousands. The first playoff game, a Connecticut announcer trolled visitors by putting them on a bandwagon cam and labeling them Fever fans since 2024. The fervor around Clark started building at Iowa, where she became major college basketball's all-time leading scorer. Clark mania jumped to the Fever last February 29, when she declared she would skip her extra year of eligibility for the COVID-19 pandemic and go to the WNBA. Even before Indiana selected Clark number 1 overall, an unprecedented ticket-buying frenzy ensued. In 2022, the team played at the State Fairgrounds venue Indiana Farmers Coliseum because their regular arena was being renovated. The Fever went a franchise-worst 5-31 that season and averaged fewer than 2,000 fans per game. This year, Indiana drew an all-time WNBA record 17,036 fans per game. That's more than the 16,526 average for the 2023-24 Pacers, the Eastern Conference finalists with whom the Fever share Gainbridge Fieldhouse. We used to play in a barn with 6 fans, third-year Fever forward Nalissa Smith marveled, a few weeks before Indiana's May 14 season opener. Now we're going to be playing in sold-out arenas. Caitlin Clark's historic viewership numbers in playoff debut turning heads ahead of Fever's elimination game. Caitlin Clark's historic viewership numbers in her playoff debut are turning heads ahead of what could be the last game of her season. After having one of the best rookie seasons in WNBA history, Indiana Fever star Caitlin Clark made her highly anticipated playoff debut on Sunday against the Connecticut Sun. That said, it wasn't the thrilling game people hoped it would be, as the Fever lost 93-69. There was some talk about the referees both during and after the game, but regardless, the Fever didn't play to the level they needed to in order to win. Even so, Clark and the Fever still made history with their viewership numbers as they averaged 1.8 million viewers during an NFL Sunday. Only 2 WNBA Finals games in league history have averaged more viewers at a time. That said, the most impressive part about this stat is that the game was taking place during the heart of NFL Sunday with a number of big games on. Truly goes to show the impact Clark has had so early in her career. It's likely they'll blow this viewership number out of the water next game, as it'll be the only one on at the time, and it could be Clark's last game of her historic season. The Fever take on the Sun again on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Hopefully the Fever can pull through to make it a very exciting series. How Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever, Tina Charles's Atlanta Dream play on women's basketball podcast. LA Times is taking heat for its Dejonae Carrington, Caitlin Clark headline. Some of the coverage surrounding Caitlin Clark's rookie season hasn't been sports journalism's finest hour. Just over a minute into Sunday's playoff game between the Fever and Sun, Clark caught a hand to the eye from Connecticut's Dejonae Carrington, which didn't draw a foul. Didn't take long for the eye poke, which appeared to be incidental to trend on social media, especially considering the history the two players have with each other. Earlier this summer, Carrington openly mocked Clark for flopping in a June 10th game between the two teams, leading to this questionable headline from the LA Times. Caitlin Clark suffers black eye. It was caused by player who mocked and called her out in June. Times article almost immediately garnered reaction from those around the WNBA world for seemingly implying intent behind Carrington's actions, while also adding to the season-long discourse of the league's black players attacking the unanimous Rookie of the Year out of jealousy. If I worked at the LA Times, I would be calling/emailing about the people who wrote and approved this headline, ESPN's Sarah Spain said. Those people aren't willing to put their names behind accusing Carrington of intentionally poking Clark in the eye. It's because they know this is flat out wrong.